And the game of the day, many people say that was the game of the day. Now, looking at the games in a vacuum, that was the game of the day. But with the tournament situation as it is, this is the game of the day. And some percentage of people, I don't know what percentage, think that Alekseenko took a dive, that he lost on purpose. I always think everybody's cheating, but in this case, I don't. Now, if it was proven he cheated and he confesses and says, this is what happened, I lost on purpose, okay, then okay. I'm not shocked, but I think he just lost. I think he got outplayed. And there was a lot of complications in this game. It was a hard game to play. And he definitely made a couple of key mistakes at the end of the opening. So they played this fake Catalan line. Okay. Now, as I explained in my video, in the Catalan kind of positions, this isn't exactly a Catalan because the pawn's not here. I'll go there later. This bishop has an issue. And the two ways to solve that issue, which we saw in Anish Giri Wang Hao, are here. Or in other games, b5, bishop b7. Well, you can't play here. So it's going to play b5, bishop b7. And queen c2, you can't play b5 because then he unleashes the latent potential. And if you had more than an 8th grade education, you would know the difference between latent potential and actualized potential. So this is bad because I can move my knight here, attacking the rook, and then my knight's going to c6, and I'm winning. So these moves probably both win. Okay, so he played c5, which is the main move, and then knight c3. Okay, now, at this point in the game, Alekseenko's played fine, and Magnus has had black in this position a couple times. And here, Alekseenko showed a not good understanding of the position and just got outplayed and lost. And he was losing like 5 moves later. Thanks for the 100 centidues. Tuesday's green. He likes the Marin book on this line. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think any of that happened, but you know, I guess it's funny if it happened. Everybody's live. Everybody's alive. Everybody's friend requesting me. All right. 9 what? Oh, I have texts. Oh yeah, I already saw those texts. All right. Well, this is fine. There's nothing wrong with what he did here. Now, obviously, when you're playing Jan and you're preparing for him, this isn't what you prepare for. You're preparing against e4 and d4. You're not preparing for some boring strategical line because you're just playing chess. And probably Nepomniachtchi decided to play c4 and g3, for this particular game, so Alekseenko couldn't do big prep on e4 and d4 that he would have to play on his own pretty early. And if you don't prepare this line and you don't have games in it, you're not going to remember so much. Now, I'll give you guys a master class in how to play this with black, also a grandmaster class. Black needs to play b5, bishop b7. And some would argue if he does, he's even better because your pawns are here and white's pawns are there. And you can't play b5 because knight here and the rook and the knight c6. So because of that, the best move is queen c7. This has been played by Magnus and many other super GMs. And the idea is I'm going to play b6 or b5, bishop b7, and everything's fine. And if you don't play bishop b7 in the next 3 or 4 moves, you're not going to play it. These are going to stay here the whole game, and you're lost. Strategically lost. Not the kind of lost you understand, the kind of lost that like Magnus understands. So he didn't do that. He just played shallow and pedantic. You got to play queen c7. He played boring move. That doesn't help get the bishop out, which is the points of all of this. The point of a6, c5 is to play queen c7. It seems like he didn't know that. D4 is great. And now this is just terrible the rest of the game. Now, it is a symmetrical pawn structure, and nobody's ahead material, but black can't move his queenside, like ever. So the engine says that white's close to winning here. Okay, knight b6, queen c7. And finally, knight b6. Maybe his bishop can get out. Maybe. So Nepomniachtchi hasn't really done anything. He put his rooks in the middle and developed his minor pieces. And he's close to winning because we can't get these out. And unless I calculated a reason not to, which he might have done, I would play bishop d7 here. Even if it goes to e8, that's better than c8, then the other rook can go to c8, the rook on a8. And the engine says black's doing terrible after that move. So he played e5, which actually is the engine move. And that gives away the f5 square and the d5 square, but you're not suffering as much. And I would play bishop f8, but he got rid of his bishop that wasn't doing very much against the beautiful knight. And white has two bishops, and they are very good bishops. That's some good bishops. He's got his rook lined up with the queen. His queen is really strong there. And, black's pieces are just, shallow and pedantic. Knight c4 is the engine move. Bishop at g5 is the engine move. And this has a very funny threat that you rarely see in top-level chess games, which came to fruition. And then I think it got kicked out because fruition was closed that day. Anyway, he played rook d1, the engine move. Plays a lot of engine moves for guys losing on purpose. Knight takes exclam, former muscle. Not only defending the pawn, but pinning the knight to the queen. Rook takes is much worse. This is just winning. Okay, rook d8, not the best move. Probably queen d8's the best move. Then if you take the knight, I take this knight, then the knight's not pinned. But obviously, it's move a million and the rook is still here. So rook d8 makes a lot of sense. Bishop takes f6. This is the threat that white has after queen f5, which is very funny to me. Take bishop e4, and you can't play g6 because your bishop is hanging. So material's equal. Black finally escaped from the bind. Opposite color bishops, and he's dead lost. Truth hurts. Queen a5. He wants to get counterplay. He unpins his knight. If you take the knight, the queen and the rook come in. And maybe just the rook, because you don't want to get mated. You don't get mated, though. Bishop d8. So maybe. Okay, so he played knight c3. And that's an excellent move. King f8, doesn't want to get mated. Knight d5, he wants to mate him, threatening two-move mate. And now, with the knight not being on d1, rook takes c4 as a threat. There's no knight to win on d1. He defended his knight. He threatened mate in 1. And as I said in my video, white only has one winning move here, and I got chastised by the gawking rabble. They were like, 2 pieces are attacked, so obviously this is the only move, frankly. Easy to see, nothing else to look at. Maybe, but this might lead to a draw with opposite colored bishops. So you have to be sure, that when you play all this variations and you allow this, that you're still winning. Good judgment on his part. And e4, the engine doesn't play e4. I really like e4. That's a great move because it solidifies the bishop here forever. It stops you from taking this forever, and it stops you forever from playing e4, e3, which could lead to a draw, or bishop d4. e4 is great, and probably a better engine than the one I'm using. Running, with a lot of core would play e4 because it's such a good move. It's just a great move. The bishop's here forever. This bishop's trapped. Pawn is safe. King is safe. Papa John's. Okay, he checked, and queen c8. It's an excellent move because, you're getting checkmated over here. In fact, if he plays c3, it's a forced mate. Obviously, you can't go here because it's mate in 1. So you have to go there. Then there's this check. And this is the only legal move, and therefore the best move. And then mates. So you can't play c3. And it's funny, he couldn't play c3, so he was PO'd. I mean, he's like, I want to play c3. So he stopped queen c7 with mate. And now he's down a pawn, and this pawn is weak, and this pawn is weak. This is the best bishop in the history of chess. And this bishop, sucks and blows, which is physically very difficult to suck and blow at the same time, but it does. Trade queens, which is probably a draw. Obviously, he's not trading queens. And here he resigned. King e8 loses to bishop c6. King d8 loses for a couple reasons. We can check here and win this pawn, or we can check here and win this pawn. I don't know. And queen d6 runs into the same problem. You're going to lose one of your pawns here. And then you'll be down 2 pawns. You have the worst bishop. Your king is exposed, etc. Mainly, etc. So here he resigned. And that was a very good game from Nepomniachtchi. He played fantastically well. He made a lot of really good moves. A lot of his moves were just great. And, Alekseenko didn't play his best game, and he couldn't defend the much worse position. And it all started when he didn't play queen c7. He didn't know the opening in that particular position, even though there were some super grandmaster games, probably because he didn't look at this opening. It's really unlikely Nepomniachtchi is going to play this. He plays e4 and d4. You got to be ready for that. So he got him good in the opening. He played an opening Kirill wasn't expecting, and he made a mistake right away. Also, etc. Yeah. Yeah, sub battle was good. Candidates is good. It's amazing how many draws there are when it makes sure that you can't win the tournament. That anybody wants to draw is crazy. Now, if you're in 8th place now, or 7th, and there's 4 rounds to go, you're not going to win the tournament. So, maybe if the guy in 7th goes 4-0, maybe. I doubt it. Maybe. I don't think so. So, if you don't win the tournament, then you care less because you're trying to win the tournament. Man, if you win the tournament, then you get everything. Yeah. You get world championship. Maybe you become the world champion. If you win the world championship, now your appearance fees go up in tournaments. And now people will pay you to do stuff online. The women won't get off of you. Like, go away, leave me alone. World champion. And then you get to play another world. That's the best part of being a world champion, beating the world champion. If Magnus wins, all right. But if somebody beats Magnus, they get to play for another world championship next time. So, and that's, you get the world championship money, then you get it again. So potentially, I think the over-under is like $4 million of if you become world champion than if you don't win this tournament. So the potential's great, right? So you got to win this tournament, and there's 4 people who can win. The 3 people who were tied for second, and the guy who's in first. But remember, if Nepomniachtchi loses 1 game, and one of those guys wins, they're tied. So it's very close at the top, and it's very nerve-wracking, right? If Nepomniachtchi's net worth is $200,000, it's probably less than that, and then he wins this tournament, now his net worth is more, a lot more. So it's it changes your life. And if he wins the world championship, whoever does, if Magnus loses, that changes your life again. And then you guys make fun of the guys for not playing well. Man, harsh. 600 centidues. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah. Now, in my opinion, anybody can beat Magnus because, Magnus is the favorite, but he's not like he wins and then just showing up. Magnus is in his 30s. Magnus hasn't been dominating like he did 5-10 years ago. Other players are getting better. Caruana's ranked really high, and he's doing well so far. Nepomniachtchi's highest rating he's ever had. It just depends on form. If Magnus isn't playing well for some reason, and the other guy's on fire, that guy's going to win. But obviously, Magnus is the favorite against anybody. But he's not a huge favorite. He's a favorite. Truth hurts. No, I don't think Nepomniachtchi is a bad matchup at all. I think it's a good matchup. Running Fool, 200 centidues. You fool. How did Fischer dominate his candidates matches? Well, the problem with people who discuss who was good and who wasn't is people have very short attention spans. So if you talk to the old guys, guys in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they'll tell you how good Capablanca and Alekseenko and Fischer and Spassky were. And if you talk to people now who are in their 20s and teens, they're like, those guys were no good. Only Carlsen's good. And people that are really young are like Kasparov, I mean, Fischer won 1 million games in a row against GMs. I mean, nobody does that. Nobody. 20 games in a row against Grandmasters. That's not done. And that's because Fischer was so good. Fischer was just an unbelievable player. And Kasparov was an unbelievable player. The thing is, the difference between Kasparov and Magnus is when Magnus wins the tournament, and sometimes he doesn't, but when he does, it's very close. Magnus gets 8, and second place is 7.5 or 7. And you're like, yay, Magnus wins again. When Fischer and Kasparov won tournaments, it wasn't by half a point. Kasparov, for example, Tilburg, 1991, I think, could be 90. Kasparov got 12 out of 14 in a double round robin with 7 top players. And second place was Korchnoi when Korchnoi was good, 30 years ago. He got 8.5. And Kasparov got 12. What? And Kasparov did that a lot. He won tournaments by 2, 3, 4 points. When Kasparov was getting GM norms, and the reason he wasn't a GM earlier is he played only in Soviet Union, so got to play foreign players. When he was getting GM norms, he was already really high rated. He would get the GM norm with 4 rounds to go. He's like 5.5 half out of 6. Oh, you got the GM norm. What? Yeah. And Kasparov was insanely high rated compared to his compatriots, as was Fischer. Carlsen's a little bit higher rated than Caruana. Sometimes he's a little bit higher rated than So. Sometimes Aronian. Some guys get close to him but never pass him. Fischer and Kasparov were 1 million points higher than number 2. They were way better. Way better. And I don't know if this is true. I don't know. But somebody told me. And it's not something you would make up. But maybe he made it up. I can't even investigate it because it's too long ago. He said when Fischer beat Spassky in the match and Fischer won by 4 or 5 points, Fischer lost FIDE rating points. And Fischer won the match easily. He forfeited a game, and he lost the first game. He still won easily. But he lost rating. And when Fischer's USCF rating was like 330 points higher than number 2. I mean, it's insane. Fischer and Kasparov were good, but you guys weren't alive then. So you're just like, I guess they were good. But now, Carlsen. I mean, I wasn't alive for Fischer, but my dad was. And I've seen his games, and I've seen his results. He's crazy like Fox News. He's crazier than Fox News. God damn. Nobody's crazier than Fischer. Nobody. And Kasparov, I was there for Kasparov. I mean, I've seen him analyze when he was good. Now he's not good. But when he was good, Carlsen ain't better than him. Kasparov saw 100 move variations every move. That's probably why he was 2860. 20 years ago. Man, harsh. Hype train, it's dying. Boo, boo. Kasparov donates better than you guys too. Yeah. Econ subscribed to tier 1. Hooray. Yeah, it's funny. In the 70s, the highest rated players in the world were between like 2570 and 2630 in the 70s. Now the highest rated players in the world are 2770 to 2870. Yeah, crazy. must to inflate ratings. Also, etc. Lasker was good. Kramnik was good. Yeah. Rating inflation is very complicated as to why it exists. It would take me a whole stream to explain why there's rating inflation. But there is. A lot of rating inflation happened due to a curiosity in FIDE's rating system 30 years ago, which I don't think exists anymore. I don't think they do this. But in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the lowest FIDE rating that was possible was 2,200. Nobody was FIDE under 2,200. It didn't exist. So you played in a FIDE-rated tournament. You didn't have a FIDE rating. If your performance was 2,200 or over, you got a FIDE rating. And so what happened a lot is people who were rated 2,200 to 2,260 FIDE, they lost their FIDE rating. They're 2,210. They lose 15 rating points. They're not FIDE rated anymore. Now, what they should have done, obviously, which would have caused them 5 seconds of work, so they didn't do it, is keep them on a provisional list only they know about. You don't know about it, so the guy doesn't have a FIDE rating. And then when he plays in a tournament, you take what his rating would have been, 2,190, and then you see how he did, and if it goes over 2,200, you publish it again. They didn't do that. They just said you're not rated. So then, if you played in a tournament, had a 2340 FIDE performance, you're 2340. Now, if you were 2210, you'd be like 2235. But if you don't have a rating, you're much higher. And that happened with a lot of people. And the most famous example is Eric Schiller. He did that all the time. He was 2205. He wasn't rated. He was 2330. Then he lost his rating. And then he's ridiculous. Yeah, thanks for donating to the train. I appreciate that. Except for one thing. 200. Go Gingy. Okay, Gingy has a lot of scams. Okay, a lot. I could do a stream about that. But I'm going to tell you my favorite one. My favorite Gingy scam. He wants to be the highest rated player on ICC, the site you never heard of. And he had a friend who was like 2,000 strength. And he'd play on the guy's account. And the guy got to 25, 26, 2,700. Then he would play 1,000,000 games with that guy. So that guy's 2,000. All of a sudden he's 2,600. Then Gingy plays him and beats him every game because the guy's 2,000. And the guy loses until he's 2,000. And then Gingy's rating just skyrockets. Now, if Gingy's beating a 2,000, that doesn't matter. But if Gingy's beating a 2,600, his rating goes up. So I like the way he would artificially give the guy's rating, then go back to normal, and his rating would just keep going up. That's funny. Good scam. Idiocrat 93 subscribed. Mayhem on E4 subscribed, or gifted a sub. Hooray, you guys are the best. Yeah. Okay, we need 10 subs to get to 3,200. Go, everybody. You miss ICC? It's still there. Go to chessclub.com and play on ICC. Still exists. Not only does it exist, they were holding online tournaments for Goichberg for several months. That's where he put his online tournaments. Do I have to give 10 subs? Because that costs money. Well, Ryan C3483 subscribed. His name rhymes. Ryan C3483. Good. FICS still exists? God damn. Really? FICS was before ICC. Damn. That's 35 years ago. Man. That's crazy. I think people like to play Bughouse there. Somehow they have good interface for Bughouse, ICC and FICS. I'm not saying that's true, but that's what I heard. Yeah. Previous login was 1996. No, I mean, the best Goichberg story is him not knowing about this TV on the wall and wanting to take the TV off the wall and put it in his house at the St. Louis Chess Club. Nothing's funnier than that. 100 centidues, taller Petrosian? Tall. Go tall. Soviet Russia, Georgia, that's right. 3191. I may have to donate subs because I want to have 3,200. Terrible. I can't believe I'm spending money. Boo. Boo, Ben. I'm not going to donate it all, though. You guys got to help. Oh, my God. I hope the payment processing doesn't work. Was Reshevsky ever the best in the world? No. Would Tall be any good today? Well, he's dead and rather pungent, so I don't think so. Was this agreed to a draw? Black resigned here. The engine says plus 3.2. Radius 89 gifted a sub. Thaddeus gifted a sub. Hooray. Cornhusker subscribed. Hooray. 31.99. Good number of subs. Plight 999 put us over the top. Why he resigned? He's down a pawn. He's going to lose his second pawn. His king is worse. His bishop is worse. So he resigned. I already explained why he resigned. If he goes here, this wins the queen. And if he goes here or here, you're going to lose either this pawn, or both. And he has no counterplay. The bishop's terrible. Can't get to a good square. If it was here, he might not resign, but jump over the pawn. At the Super GM level, this is a very easy win. Agreed to resign. That's right, Spencer. Yeah. Spence, we had to move up our housekeeper. She wanted to come 11:30, and now she's coming at 12:30. So I should get home just in time. And you'll have to give me a key, I guess. If you forget that, I can't do the cat stuff. So hopefully you won't forget and I won't forget. As long as one of us doesn't forget. And then make sure you bring your driver's license. And let's see what else. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I hope Krista's not picking you up at the airport. I hope it's like Uber or Lyft. God damn. Or, a car service, I guess, if it's New York. No. Jan could be the next world champion. All right, thanks for giving me hundreds of subs today. 3,200 subs. I think it's the most ever. Trying to Learn disagrees. He thinks we had more at some other point. The truth hurts.